Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your patience as we get started. It's a very quick turnaround time because we were in rehearsals and teaching right up until moments before we're starting this panel, so we needed a moment to get some technical issues resolved with Zoom and feedback and all of that fun stuff when we have people both remote and in person. So thanks for being here. This is a wonderful panel discussion. We have a really great panel that are going to be talking about improvisation with electronics in not only music but a lot of different fields. We're streaming this live, so I'm going to give some information that is probably redundant to you all that have been here all week. But I am Adam Vidixis, one of the organizers of SPLICE Institute, and I'll be the moderator for the panel today. And we're joined by some really great guests, some of which, again, if you have been here, you know quite well. But if you're joining us remotely, I will take the time to introduce to you. So we have Dennis Sullivan and Aaron Rogers of Pope Bama joining us here in person. They are composers, performers, and our SPLICE Institute 2023 guest artists. So welcome, thank you for being here. Joining us remotely, we have Ari Su, who is a composer, dancer, choreographer, and sound artist. So thank you for being here, Ari. And a longtime collaborator of mine, Roderick Coover, who's a multimedia artist and filmmaker whose work you saw on Monday night, both in the installation and in the live concert performance. The video, the film was done by Rod. Thank you for being here, Rod. So I want to start by allowing everyone to give an introduction to their work. I've asked Pope Bama to do that so that folks that are joining us remotely have some sense of the things that they've been up to lately. So why don't I turn it over to both of you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks.
We brought up a video that we'd like to share. Some of you here have seen it already, but I play it and share it on the Zoom stream. Can everybody see it?
No sound.
Did you get the idea?
You've got sound, Dennis. Aaron doesn't have sound.
Our specialty is creating the appearance of noise. But actually, since everyone here has seen our work quite a bit this week, we'll just talk a little bit about how we came to be a duo that we are. And I guess it's 7 years ago, Dennis and I formed Pope Bama, and it was really a platform for both of us to experiment, to test out our compositions. We're both composers, and of course to play together, both being sort of trained instrumentalists in sort of classical conservatory upbringing, and we both been in the New York scene for a while and have been experimenting with theater groups and sort of improv groups, and so the joining of Pope Bama as a duo had a lot coming in, a lot of energy coming in from all of those different facets. And so when we started making music together, it became clear that this was a sort of a playground for us to try things. And very quickly, it also became apparent that we wanted to take this music and share it, and we wanted to share performances of it. We had this sort of experimental sound, this improvisatory energy, but we still wanted to make pieces of the statements and sort of hone them in, rehearse them, and make them something bigger than they were. And that sort of led us into the electronics elements, which our very first piece was acoustic, entirely acoustic, but contained a lot of instrumental sounds that lent themselves to being bigger and better with electronics. So we started to implement foot pedals, effects pedals, and started to bring in different types of microphones close to my arm, things to just enhance our performances. And I think that sort of brought us to where we are today with our performative electronics kind of identity.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the bulk of it. I guess I'll just add that one of the benefits we found to our ensemble and kind of our close collaboration is that I don't know that any of our fixed pieces or fixed works are ever truly fixed. They're kind of always in this state of becoming and sort of development, and we kind of have this like endless license between the two of us to edit and, you know, rehash and rework, and kind of a piece can always become something else if we decide we want to move in another direction, or, you know, tastes change over the years or things like that. So it's another place where, you know, maybe you don't feel as comfortable doing that with some other players that you don't have that relationship with, and, you know, to the point that maybe it's not even fair to do that. You know, if you've learned all these notes, then maybe you don't go in and start making wholesale changes to scores. But I think the kind of like closeness of the collaboration has yielded this playground where we just can kind of, you know, continue to develop our sound, and even if that means wholesale changes to fixed works, we're able to do so.
Great, thanks. We are having an issue where I think the interface wire has fallen out again. So I'm going to suggest, so that the panelists that are remote can hear, that Aaron, you just switch over with me, since it seems like that we have given you a faulty interface, and sorry about that. And because I will not be talking nearly as much. So if you just want to pop over to this one so that they can hear you.
Okay.
So, and I'll just jump in and share. We'll troubleshoot a bit while that's happening. But while we're doing that, let's go to Ari, please, to talk about your work.
Hey everybody. Thanks for having us. I wanted to piggyback off of Pope Obama, but I couldn't hear Aaron, so please excuse me if it sounds like I'm tone deaf to anything that she said. I was trying to lip read, but can't really do that well. So we're just introducing what we do in some of our work and our approaches. Is that, yes, true? Okay, so I was trained as a pianist and came to improvisation and electronics through prepared piano. So that was my entry into working with improvisation, and that quickly evolved into dance, kind of performing as a dancer with sensors, and allowing the sensors to control anything from live processing to collaborations with robotics and mechatronic instruments. I think my general approach to using improvisation is to basically build a playground in which I can play and inhabit, and then the other side of that is to facilitate collaborations with, you know, friends or other artists, and then also I use it as a generative device to build pieces or to build choreographies. And so I think if we have a portion where we're sharing work, I can show some of that. And should I turn it over to Rod?
Yeah, well, you can share something now if you like first.
Yeah, it'd be great if you could share the work.
Share now?
And then I'll share stuff after.
Okay, so I'm going to share screen. I do have some things queued up. Someone make a gesture or yell at me if you can't hear or see. So I'll just show maybe 30 seconds from 3 recent pieces. And Adam did say, it'll be great if you show some dance things, so that's what I'll show. This first piece is a piece with a sensor interface that I developed with Stephen Kemper, who's also a composer. and his group, ME, Expressive Machines Musical Instruments. And if you see, there are robotic arms on each of these instruments. There's some toms, there's a cymbal, there's some shakers up here, and the concept behind this piece is what happens, where are the lines between our body and technology? And this was based on a piece, or on Donna Haraway's seminal work about cyborgs, her writings, and her view is that there can be a kinship, although I know these days with the conversations around AI, it feels more dastardly, but for her, this was in the 90s, there can be fluidity and a kinship between your body and technologies. And so this is a creative rendition of that. So I'll just play 30 seconds. So my movement is controlling, at times it's in a duet with instruments, at times it's controlling the instruments, and at times the movement is controlled by the instrument. So there are all these different kind of fluid relationships with the technology and with the robotic instruments and the body. And in the role of improvisation in this is that there are, it's kind of like a guided improv. So I'll just play a little. I'm gonna just keep an eye on time because I know I don't want to hog the time. So I'll quickly play two other pieces, just short excerpts. This next piece is a piece I did with Alice Blumenfeld, who is a flamenco dancer. And the role of improvisation in this piece was over the course of a year, we actually had maybe 2-hour rehearsals every week or every 2 weeks, and we recorded our improvisations. And then we went through all that footage and put together a not quite fixed, but kind of fixed landmarks, a piece for belly dance, flamenco. You'll see the fan and the wings, and then I wrote the electroacoustic music, which I actually wrote alongside creating the choreography. So I'll just play a minute of this. This is a different aesthetic. The other one was meant to be noisy and broken, dystopic, and this one's a little bit. This piece is about nostalgia, so it was a little bit more calm. Advancing it a little bit. All these are on my website, so you can watch them in full. And the last one is the most recent piece I completed in February. This was a departure from my typical wheelhouse. It's about kind of dancing the story of older generations in my family. And this specific piece is my mother telling the story about my grandfather, who was the the child of a third wife in Taiwan in the 1920s in this household, and his very last memory at the age of 5 of his mother was her walking away from the household. And the story of that was she was abused and, you know, kind of looked down upon as the lowest rung of the household, and she begged to be able to leave, and they told her, as long, you can leave, but you have to leave your son behind. And so that memory is called Blue-Gray Silhouette, stuck with him at the age of 5 and basically shaped his whole life after that. And he never really saw her again. I think she would lurk in the bushes when he was at school and kind of spy on him. But I'll just play a little bit. This is narration. And for this, all the dance is improvised. And the sound makers, I'm wearing some of them are in the electronics. And then there's also live percussion at the end. And so, but I won't play all that. I'll just play a tiny bit excerpt from the beginning, and then I'll turn it over. So I'm wearing a robotic vibration motor that Stephen Kemper also made that's actuating
5 years old when he saw
actuating this chime that I'm wearing.
his mother for the last time. For the rest of his life, she existed in his memory as a disappearing blue-gray silhouette. In Taiwan in the 1920s, my grandfather was an inconsequential child of his father's third wife. She had been offered in exchange to pay off her own father's debt. As the lowest ranking member of the household, she was subject to untold mistreatment and neglect. She pleaded for her freedom and was finally told she could leave, but her son could not go with her. My grandfather told my mother his story that he had held on to for his entire life.
Hurried out the door without looking back. Someone at the door opened the wooden latch, and she stepped out without looking back. I threw a tantrum. Suddenly, my father rushed out from the corridor, heading toward our direction. His face was on fire. Approaching me with force, he slapped my face and cursed out, "You devil, little Sigina. Where do you think you're going to die?" And the blow knocked me down and silenced me. I don't remember how I got up and ran away from both of them.
So I will pause there, mindful of time, and pass it. I don't know the format, but
Okay, I think my name is Rod Kuba, and as Adam noted, we collaborate on quite a few projects. I'm a filmmaker and media artist, and so my practice, it does not involve any form of improvisation in its output, rather the opposite. My work is all about in the output, rigorous and intense constraints. The constraints of editing, the constraints of code that drives output, constraints that are established in a way to make certain kinds of collaboration possible. Where the levels of improvisation happen are in the acts of creation, because what I do is create these data sets of sets of materials that are then drawn from, and those are created by documentary practices that are very aleatory, that involve walking, recording, watching, sitting for many hours, watching, following leads, filming from kayak, taking this turn or that. I'm going to just show a couple examples of how these processes of creative exploration are then constrained and contained by some other kind of format. I'm going to start with, I'm just going to show two little works. The first is a short excerpt from a 2007 film I made with Deb Olin Unferth. called The Theory of Time here. And this one, as you'll see, is all recorded by sitting on a street corner in front of St. Pancras' station in London, watching people stuck at a traffic light, or pedestrians stuck at a traffic light trying to get to a train station to catch a train. So let me go to screen share for this one. And again, this one is created in collaboration with the fiction writer Deb Olin Unferth.
At the tone went, we went at the tone. At the tone seconds. Second of all, the time was now, the time was second, the now was last, the tone was first, the first was next, the why was now, the one was first, the now was gone, the tone was go, and now, the time will be, the two, go, to a three, in time, exactly, exactly, at the tone, now and then, once upon a time, will be, at the tone, in a while, at the tone, in a while, in a time, once in a time, another again, when in a while, when in a time, when, or yet, three in a while, two in a while, when in a while, now and then, again, now the time, will be once in a while, now was in a while, now was now, and then, it was when, now and next, a second, another, and one, exactly. Next, in fact, at the tone, the second will be. First, the time will be, or was, or wanted, or in a while, hoped, or was, or then, or left. At the tone, leave. At the tone, leave a second. At the tone, now, leave a message. At the now, leave a tone. When, the now and again, the PM, everyone was a while, everyone was, a once, was, a twice, might have been, two, or twice, might have been, twice, or once or in a while, yet, one was now, and, again, yet, one, and, every, one went soon, or sooner, at the tone, everyone went, or, at the tone, everyone already was, or, was not, everyone was not, or, is not, once was, is not, or, is not now, was then, was once, will not be, was already, now, is not, at the tone, everyone was not, leave at the tone, the time will be, at the hour, another, exactly. First the...
So that's a short excerpt from The Theory of Time here, built under very rigorous editing constraints and time constraints. A lot to address the power of time itself was based on the old speaking clock that you used to call up on telephones to figure out what time it was. And in this case, the clock had somewhat gone wrong. It's also about trying to find ways to collaborate between the ways that images construct meaning, and text, and with Adam, sound. And that, in a way, every image has a visual or temporal or metric counterpart. Every word has, in a way, finds its visual partner. Every sound looks for a connection with an image. And these crisscross and jam and crash by the way that the systems, by the intermediary of the machine. And the machines, even the machines we think we work well tend to go wrong in one way or another. Even if we think they're working, there's something else awry in the system. With Anna, we've been collaborating now for a few years, and I've been filming since 2013 on shorelines, walking along shorelines, kayaking shorelines. You saw a lot of some of the images filmed in the Delaware estuary, in the Thames estuary, in the film and in Barcelona also, that was screened earlier in the week. We also did a series of works for VR, and these also used rather rigorous systems of first compiling matter that would fit into database sets and fit into generative systems, and then letting the computers use codes to throw everything together, which is not improvisation, and yet it's also something that's always surprising, because in fact you don't know what's going to happen. As the computer combines and mixes and generates and all this stuff comes together in some other kind of thing that has a tremendous unpredictable element, a surprise, which is one of the wonderful things of improv, and yet it's not improv, it's something completely different that is what comes out of machine-driven art. And I'm going to show one excerpt. You already saw the long film, most of you. So this rather is just one sample of the headset films we were doing, the VR pieces for VR. We designed these actually to be discovered on site in different locations. So you'd walk, you'd explore the landscape yourself, you'd be having your own kind of experience of your day, and there'd be a spot where you can link to this experience, and kablam, there you are somewhere else. So the improv is not in the work, in the composition of the work, it's in all of these relationships we have in the constructing. And this, as you'll see, is a piece of me wandering around in the middle of a rainstorm, looking for things, again, that have rhythm and motion and mood and so forth. And this is in VR, so I might have to direct how it plays. So if it moves around, it's me doing it. Stop there, thank you.
I think we have our technical difficulties sorted. However, if at any point you can't hear what's being said, please speak up right away so we can, if we have to, we'll just switch to another mic because I really want to make sure we have a fluid discussion. So one of the things that really came up, and I think is a really interesting thing, in general for people that are working with electronics, in improvisational context, or really it's something that, you know, is kind of inherent to electronics generally often, is this loss of control, this loss of sort of agency in, that you give over, you know, willingly, and oftentimes that's the excitement for people. And all of you mentioned this to some degree in what you talked about, and like sort of why, why you do this in this way. So I'm curious, you know, like, why are you drawn to this aspect? Like, what is it about the giving agency over, some of your agency over to the machine, the system, the code, that, you know, like is inspiring, and in particularly, like, you know, working then, you know, having to respond to that obviously as part of the improvisational framework. So why don't we start with Ari, and then let's just, you know, please speak up, speak freely as in an open discussion.
Thanks, I love that question. I think for me, it's the chance that some kind of synergy will happen and that something new will emerge. It's not so much, oh, let me give up control. It's what is the brand new either style, or what is the brand new sound that might emerge from that kind of bi-directional interaction. And I maybe that's pretty abstract, so in a concrete way, you know, in Stephen and my systems, that is the goal, and where it happens is my movement style will change, will adjust, right, to react to whatever's happening in the machines, and then the same the other way. So if my movement is changing and I'm wearing the things that actuate the machines or that influence machines, then it becomes this really cool feedback loop. And then then we're kind of spiraling into some other territory together as a system. So for me, it's the opportunity for some new synthesized, no pun intended, thing to emerge. So it's not, I think it's less about, oh, what's controlling what. It's more just what are the opportunities that can come up spontaneously, and then you react to them in real time, and then it sets off that feedback.
Still a little bit of that like Haraway-esque optimism there, right? And I'm curious then, like, I know Dennis and Aaron, you talk a lot about control in your work, and you think about that quite a bit. So do you share like an optimism when it comes to that, or what are your thoughts?
Sure, yeah. I think for Aaron and I both, it's pretty rare that we play or improvise solely with electronics. Usually Aaron's a saxophonist, myself as a percussionist, or as vocalists. There's usually some sort of acoustic involved, and so the electronics, whether or not it's a matter of processing that sound or just another kind of voice. And I guess that's one thing that I find interesting, particularly in an improvisational setting, is maybe the idea that there's a third, sometimes fourth member that has entered the room and entered the ensemble that can kind of steer us into places that we might not go if we're only reacting to one another. And then, of course, I think we'll probably all have this question of agency, and there's a question of how much agency do we have over that third or fourth voice, and what percentage, zero agency over it, or I guess there's always other agency because you did plug it in and press the button, so you chose for it to happen.
And I'll just add quickly,
Can everybody hear me?
Okay,
I'll just add quickly that in an improvisatory practice, it's often about exploring part of the narrative, and I think if that's shared with audiences and folks who take part in the performance, it can be sort of exciting or interesting for everybody in the room when you let them in on the secret. Complaints, this feedback, and there's this other thing of controlling me as a performer, but not controlling, we're sharing that giving and taking, and that also takes a little bit of responsibility off me as the generator or the performer or the composer intention and everything mapped out, right? As Ari was saying, having this sort of piece of the equation to react to takes a little bit of the onus off of yourself in the preparation, right? And react in the moment.
Rod, how
Yeah, I
do you-
envy the musicians for the fact that you get to have that experience, the live responsive experience. I've enjoyed that in the collaborations also. And it's of course very different from my life as a filmmaker. Everything is mediated. So I go out and have these very intense, long journeys, long walks, kayak rides, and this and that. But everything I get back is mediated. And if there's too much perfect synergy, I'm worried, because then I've been consumed by the machine that consumes all of us, it consumes all of our consciousness in so many ways. We talked about the dangers of AI earlier and so on. So one of the wonderful things about, I think, this approach to programming and incorporating the machine is that it actually creates the glitches where you see the distance between the human experience and the machine experience. You disrupt what you expect the machine to give you back. It gives back things you don't expect. And in those gaps, you might actually find something that's also about our human relationship to the non-human processes that have, control our lives, with us, from our cell phones to our waking up with alarm clocks and so on. And so where do we find, in a way, our points of contact and bring that back to life? I think as again, there's something wonderful with the musicians. You get to do that by coming back to the acoustical performed moment. And I'm caught just before that, actually, in that moment of contact with the machine. The other thing, of course, I think I really love about it is that the aspect of looking for this feedback from the machine and being in that space between is that one doesn't, one's less likely to get bored by one's own work, because it's always something coming back that you didn't expect. And that's a lot to be said for that, because it actually keeps your brain going, keeps it fun to keep going through a project the way it's fun, I think, to play certain song, tune again and again, because each time is a bit different. And in film, so much of traditional film, you do it once and it's fixed, and you have to sit through it again. It's nowhere near as exciting as what you get with this kind of play. In this case, a collaborative play that the machine gives, and therefore other people feeding into the machine, in this case collaborating with Adam, the musician, having the poet Nick Mumford put in stuff. There's a kind of play that takes place that the machine helps create a theater for, which is not otherwise true for film.
And Rod, you work a lot with, lots of different projects, musicians that are going to respond in improvisatory ways. And it's a frequent thing that happens. When you're thinking about your work in that context, as opposed to, say, other places that it might be shown, does it change the way you're kind of building those systems, or thinking about how that's going to happen, or is it sort of just a different process? I mean, anything. I don't want to put words here. But
one of the things I think for the processes, the kind of works that I've been doing throughout my career that have been a lot about these very specific challenges or constraint situations, is that each group of people coming in, whether it's a dancer or a musician or a writer, there's really kind of specific zones of play or constraints, and machine code also gives that. Okay, we have to fit these things within 20 seconds, 40 seconds, something's going to happen, that are unalterable constraints within which anything can happen. And then there's a lot of freedom, because there is, in a way, it pushes one to say, okay, how can we actually explode these moments that otherwise have very clear constraints and roles, and it doesn't all get muddy. In fact, it's, I think, again, music's quite interesting for this, because it's like having very different instruments that have very different roles to play at different moments, even though what they do is very open and free, and I think that actually lets the different people be more open and free than traditional film, which is just a fixed score, a fixed script. All this stuff is in cement, and there's no room for play. In a way, creating these moments of different people chiming in with freedom under a constrained system and letting that play out opens up the creative experience. I find it much more engaging. Everyone learns in the process. And while everyone also is very clear in a way roles to play or can express themselves within their own métier without being overwhelmed by one to the other. So I think it's a more true equal collaboration between the arts than often happens in the cinematic discipline. And I think that's probably true for in the, I don't know, it sounds like working with the dance too, thinking of Ori's work, it seems like there's some resonance in that case also with the way you work.
So when, and this is something that's come up with many of you, but when you're exploring and that idea that there's going to be something new, essentially like a surprise that's coming out, that's one of the appealing aspects of working with electronics, it seems, for all of you. If you are, because you've talked about improvisation as leading towards composition, it's something that you folks have talked about quite a lot over the week too. Then sometimes when you find these gaps and glitches that, like Rod was expressing, those are often not easily replicatable, right? So then thinking about that in a context, like you kind of create this system, you found these things that you like because they're surprising you in these ways, but then it may also be that, you can't do it. You think about like the no input mixer as this, instrument that's like that too, right? It's like you're kind of just constantly riding the dragon in hope that you are successful in doing so. So, how much are you worried about that idea of replication of, these great, interesting things that you found in a system, but like, will they show up on stage? So, why don't we start with Aaron or Jen?
We talked about this in our improv class today, actually. The idea of having, when working in music and improv with electronics, having also the ability to make sound without electronics. So in a performance situation, your patch fails, all of a sudden you're on stage. Can you still hold the space? Can you still do the performance? And so it comes down to ways of thinking of that as a contingency. I like to think of it as layers of performance, where if you peel back certain elements, electronic element off, is there a kernel there? Is there a performance there? And then adding these ideas that we have and layering them on top to augment the performance in a way. So, and this has happened to us before. It's been, when there's risk involved, there's risk that things will happen. And what are your plans in those situations?
Yeah, and it's just to echo that. I feel it's been personally it's been good for me to accept this idea that something is not replicatable, that there is maybe a wider array of acceptable outcomes to a particular performance, particularly I think after coming out of like conservatory training and trying to like make these very small little like orchestral snare thing, maybe these tiny little motions the exact same way over and over and over again, and there only be one acceptable outcome, which we think about as an absurd thing to expect that this extra group played by thousands upon thousands of individuals was supposed to like remove itself from that. It's been good from the standpoint of improvisation. It's been also useful and healthy to apply that to fix the world, fix composition that different humans, people, different interpretations are not only acceptable but encouraged and usually produced as a result of this connection of self into it. And I think the engagement with systems that cannot replicate the same things with all their times, then is it useful to tap that to like an approach to art, approach to life, the way we walk the world and not expect a very particular result every time.
Aria, what are your thoughts on replicatable glitches, replicatable aspects of these systems?
Yeah, I love Aaron and Dennis' thing, so that all resonates really well with me. And I think I have a multi-pronged answer to that. One is do not be under the impression that technology is infallible. So I think if you start thinking that actually these aren't perfect machines and you have a superstition, right, as you approach this type of work with human plus tech. And I did a lot of, I'm a pianist, so I did a lot of page turning for friends in my day, and there is a lot of fallibility with page turning. I've seen pianos start to slowly roll away. I've seen, someone rip the music off. So it's not in performance, it's really at any given moment, some awesome thing, and whether it's good or bad, some awesome thing can happen. And so I think, one, I would just say, for replicability, just never assume your system is going to function the same way from any given one day to the next. It's just, I feel like I'm old enough where I can say that definitively. And two, that can be, you can use that energy, right, to kind of be in the moment and have a little bit of fear on stage, which I think is always a kind of a good thing because it keeps you alert. And, I've had power supplies fail 45 minutes during my sound check right before like a big performance that I was, that had to go perfect because, your idol's out in the audience. And so but it just, you can't control it. So, always have a backup plan, like Erin says, whether it's acoustic only or just something, and, assume something is gonna go awry in the tech, and then just be prepared. And then if things go well, then use, the best scenario is that your system is a little bit glitchy and it drives you to go into an artistic place that you weren't expecting, and you use that energy. So I think there's a whole spectrum of relating to that kind of failure, or you're calling it, how can I replicate this? So I think there's the whole gamut, which I think makes it exciting. It's not super scary.
Yeah, I think you have to be, like a bit of an adrenaline junkie to want to be doing this on stage. I'm keeping an eye on the time. I want to open up an opportunity for questions from the audience before we wrap up. Do we have any questions from you folks? Yes.
So it seems that every artist in the panel has a deep connection with the use of visual art and sound.
Okay, so hold on 1 second. You're gonna need to come up here. I thought it maybe be one I could repeat, but it's not. It's fine. Come on up. Take a seat.
Where am I going?
Come right here and talk right there. Yeah. There you go. That's great. I'm glad it's a good go for it.
So it seems that all the artists here have a deep connection between the use of visual art and sound. So I just want to know the philosophy from everyone with the connection between the two.
Maybe I can start off by responding to that by picking up on the last thing about reproduction. Is that one of the great forces of industrial and post-industrial authority comes with the illusion of the copy and the illusion that we can reproduce and hold things. A photo that says, oh no, look, it's in the photo, that's how it happened. Or Google Maps says, no, that's the land. That thing of the copy is how, so one of the challenges is how to disrupt that, to find human, individual meaning, emotion, voice against the authority of the thing that is a perfect copy. And anytime things are too perfect to copy, you have to watch out. So the machine is one way of disturbing that. Constraint systems playing with that. Glitch is another way of disturbing that. Performing between image and sound is another way to do that, because between the arts, also with live poetry I do, or with dancing, film and dance is really great, is you create this space and suddenly you're not sure what's where the copy is, because now everything has shifts in meaning, and you realize the image is a component of little bits, and if you can pull those out from the authority of the frame, you start to have life, breath, and humanity. So part of that challenge is breaking through the authority of the image that has been impressed on us so strong by the technological system we're in, and that's where the way cross-art collaboration can be so great.
Does anyone else have some input they would like to put into that?
I think we chatted about
this yesterday, 2 days ago in our talk here, which is the idea of visually mapping the things that are going on in our performance practice to the audience. And when Roderick talks about sort of disrupting the system or disrupting the photograph, we as artists can use this idea of disembodied sound. So when there's the idea of mapping, there's also the inverse, the idea of disembodying or changing where you're hearing the sound from, where you think it's coming from, but actually it's here playing on those things. And we try to do a lot of that. Not everything is linear one-one, and where you start to pull those things apart, you can sort of create new scenarios. And we don't use machine in the AI sense yet, but we're very interested in seeing how that goes.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Thank you very much.
So we'll take one last question if there's anybody else that wants to come on up. Anybody? I see some negotiation happening around whether. No? No? You don't have to come up if it's the getting on camera that's making you shy. I can do it. Anyone? Okay, come on up. Thank you.
Hello. My question is, when working with improvisation and these different aspects of media at the same time, I personally always struggle with everything having like an equal integral importance to the final idea or presentation. And so I was wondering how you work or think about these different mediums at the same time and how they will fuse together at the end.
Less of a direct answer, but just something I remember seeing that spoke to the mindset of dealing with both forces was going to a concert and watching this saxophone came in and also did a lot of work with electronics instead of an enormous rig, pedals, racks, and all that stuff. And also does a lot of objects in the saxophone. Used two of the like 20 objects. Never touched the electronics in 40 minutes and then hacked it all up. And I was so I just admired his restraint so much. And I spoke afterwards because he was improvising with folks. It didn't get there. I wanted to have the option. So I guess maybe one way to think of managing all forces is to maybe throw it all at the wall, but understand that like two things will stick and it's fine. It's okay to like strip things away and just maybe managing all of it means just not dealing with three-quarters of it.
I can piggyback off that. It's a great question, and I think I would say the same thing, that I think the danger with electronics is that you could set some synthesizer on, it could just go forever, right? Forever and ever, the stamina is, as long as the battery life or whatever. And so I think, I love Dennis's story because it really is about as much of what you don't say or speak or sound as what you do, especially the more collaborators you add or the more elements you add. How can you distill down to the most essential things that need to happen at any given moment? And that might be different from day to day. Maybe one day it's, maximalism, it's everything you have all around you all at the same time. And another day it's just, my student taught me this term, lowercase. It's just gonna be, super minimalist and just the one sound here, and then 20 minutes later it's the other. So I think it's just really knowing, reading the room, reading your collaborators, and doing that with yourself, editing, trying multiple takes, multiple mixes, multiple versions, and seeing when does it get distilled down to the most essential version on any given day.
Yeah.
I'd like to offer Adam a chance to answer this question too.
Oh,
Adam,
me
would
to
you
answer?
respond?
Well, I like that Ari basically just gave the electronic version of "It's the notes you don't play, man." It's like, yeah, but one of the things that I found to be really compelling about electronics, about the systems, and then when you put them into multiple sensory fields, is how differently you respond. When you're using your eyes versus your ears versus touch and all of these different ways of responding, and how that changes very much. Like, even if my ultimate response is through sound, the way these inputs come to me is so unique, and changes absolutely the way I play, even if it's a somewhat similar stimulus that I'm receiving on different levels, or if they're joined. Or if I choose to change one, close my eyes, for example, and therefore, remove the image from the sound, or oftentimes the systems that I'm working with, will do that for me, right? Things where, the video, like what Rod was talking about earlier, it's like, I don't know what's gonna come, it's different combinations of things that, hadn't gone together before, and so I'm experiencing that in that way for the first time. And it's one of the most, I think, inspiring aspects of working on this, and using these systems, in particular with improvisation. Well, I didn't mean to have the last word, but thank you, Rod. Because we're gonna have to stop there. We're out of time. Thank you for everyone for staying a little bit late. I know we're over time because of the technical difficulties. So, Rod, Ari, Dennis, and Aaron, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. It was a really, really interesting conversation.